The Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper. And now, Coach Bill Clark.
Welcome into another edition of the Coach Bill Clark Show, presented by Buffalo Rock, Dr. Pepper, Molly Robinson, Pat Smith, along with Coach Bill Clark. Coach, it was a great, exciting weekend. A lot of rivalries going on in college football last weekend. Really a fun time right around the Thanksgiving holidays.
Yeah, you know, we've talked a lot about what sets a rivalry game up and what makes it different, whether we're talking in-state, you're talking about Ohio State, Michigan, history. And I think when you start talking about how hard a person will play, how also hard will they prepare? You know, I think we saw that in a lot of these cases where you're like, wow, this game looks like Alabama-Auburn. It's about to get away from them. And then here comes Auburn back because they're not going to give up. There's too much on the line. And that's what makes it fun. And then to have all those games at once doing that, it was really a good weekend to watch ball.
All right, let's start with the Iron Bowl, Coach, because we kind of broke it down on last week's show, what Alabama needed to do. Auburn obviously playing for state bragging rights, maybe go to a bowl game. As that game kind of played out, did it kind of go as scripted in your mind, how you thought it was going to go?
You know, I think I didn't expect Alabama probably to jump out like they did, and then to see the momentum kind of swap, and here comes Auburn. You know, and I think obviously turnovers in any game like that, and I think those are those things where it comes back to where the quarterback throws a ball, a 5-yard pass just too hard. A ball gets punched out at the end. I think it was a helmet on a ball. Those are the plays in those games that really define them. What was the play? And we used to ask our players all the time, all right, there's going to be a play in this game, maybe two, that people talk about forever. Who's going to make that play? What's going to be the play? Was it you turned the ball, or was it a negative, or did you cause a play to happen with your effort? And how you played on the positive side of it. So I think to see those plays play out, but a lot of effort, a lot of excitement. Obviously, the crowd was unbelievable, which we expected.
All right, let me ask you about the Alabama running game, because they actually found one.
Yeah.
It's been a while since you've seen Alabama being able to kind of impose their will and be able to run the football. What were you seeing? Was it the defense that Auburn was presenting, the offensive line for Alabama finally getting the push, the running backs making the proper cuts? What did you see?
I think scheme was good, but I think it was more offensive line with something to prove. I think running back running like he had something to prove. Also, sometimes when you know your opponent really, really well, you start taking for granted they can't run the ball. We're going to play the pass more. We're going to rush the passer more. And I think that's happened, probably all those things, when Alabama said, we're going to do something different and we're going to put something behind it, which is maybe the effort. I think the scheme was good, but I think it was the effort up front. Probably Auburn expecting pass a little bit more early on. So those things kind of went together.
Got to ask you about the gutsy call by Kalen DeBoer. It was an impressive drive. Took up a lot of time in the fourth quarter, kind of keeping the ball away from Auburn. You get down there. I know hindsight is what it is, and it worked out, but just – I want to get in the mind of a coach, and you're sitting there, Iron Bowl, 4th and 2 from the Auburn 6-yard line. He says, I'm not going to kick the field goal. His field goal carrier had already hit 2 field goals. Yeah. But instead, he decided, you know what? I'm going for it.
I was shocked, to be honest with you. Even though in this world, that's who they are. People go for more fourth downs, but you're going to take the lead. And, you know.
And he didn't go for the first down. He went for the touchdown.
Yeah. I was just – hey, you know, that's that no, and the three-pointer goes in, or, you know, it's like, okay. But the other side of that would not have been pretty. Now, they've got to drive 90-something yards.
You think he would have done it? I know this is, again, I know we're speculating, but this is the fun part of what we do, right? If that game was being played in Tuscaloosa, does he kick the field goal there, or do you think he rolls the dice like he did at Jordan-Hare?
I think I think he would have went for it.
I
do too. I think that's just who he is. It's a different mentality. And I always say be who you are. And if that's who you are, once again, offensive, defensive mentalities, I don't know, you know, and I think there's times when you say, once again, it worked, so you're a genius. If that doesn't work, in the extremes, my point to my team is let's get the points and go ahead and put all the pressure on them. Which, you know, obviously then they're going to take it from a kickoff return, et cetera. So that's not quite the same. But I don't know. In his mind, go for it. They don't get it. They've got to drive the length of the field. I'm just thinking, boy, I'd sure hate to lose on a field goal when I went for it on 4th down.
So Alabama gets the win in an exciting Iron Bowl down at Jordan-Hare Stadium. And so they punched their ticket. to go up against the Georgia Bulldogs. We talked about this on Three Man Front on Monday with you, and I'm always fascinated by this topic. So take us into the mindset of playing an opponent for the second time in a year, especially someone that Alabama's already beaten. Kind of take us behind the scenes, like how the coach is preparing this week. Do you look at old film? Do you throw that out and not look at that? Just take us there. What do you do in preparation for the same opponent for the second game of the year?
Yeah, I think there's as always multiple layers. One, I think when you win a game, you look at that game, and we always did a synopsis where each coach goes in there, not just the grade, but what can we do better? We're going to do what worked offensively, defensively, special teams, because we're going to go look back at all that next year. So you're going to have that. But a loss haunts you, especially when you don't lose a ton. These losses haunt you, and you second guess everything through. You're just going to go back everything throughout that game. I could have done this better. I promise you I'll do this next time we play. So I think the loss versus the win. I think your mindset of your players, the mentality. People act like that's not a big deal. They don't understand how the emotions of a player who's lost, and you got something to prove. They're laughing at you. They're making fun of you. And probably what you do, you're watching them after the game. And this whole deal now where they're celebrating, somebody's talking trash to you after the game. That's this new world they're in. But boy, does it not give you bulletin board. Remember we had Kirby and Malzahn a few years ago.
Sure did.
That's the exact same thing I would do. I'm looking for, they taunted us after the game.
A little bit of edge motivation.
And they do it. I mean, it's just the world we're in now where kids say, they're saying things.
Or they get on their social media and post something stupid.
Please do.
Yeah.
And it's right after the game. It's still there, and you just start finding it, and you start putting it up, and they got to live with it. And now you got them with a mat on. I mean, they are not happy. Your coaches are not happy. And that's that thing. I promise you we're not going to lose these guys again. Type mentality. And you can see just how that plays out versus, boy, we won, but.
Yeah.
Man, we won. And that's for all of us. Man, we relax. We won. We're better than them. Even though we caught a tip pass or we had this turnover or we had something. Now, a dominant performance, but even a dominant performance, well, they're not very good.
Yeah.
They're not that good. We're just that much better now. So you can see how all these factors play in.
Well, and going back to the first meeting in September, Alabama is 13 of 19 on third down. They score a ton of points, get a ton of yards against a Kirby Smart defense. But then in the second half, the adjustments, some things that Alabama was being able to do successful in the first half was coming a little bit more difficult. So then now, if you're Georgia, you did lose the game. But if you're Kirby and Glenn Schumann, you feel pretty good because the adjustments that you made really hampered Alabama in the second half.
Well, I think minus the running game, early on in this game, I think we've seen – I don't want to say Alabama's gotten worse. I think people have caught up to them on a lot of the things they were doing. Now, they're still finding ways to win these games minus Oklahoma. So give the coaches credit. I love what we talked about last week about this is a different Alabama team. Just once again, they're finding a way to win, and that's really all they're going to get measured by. We're going to see Georgia, who I've said I thought has gotten better. Now, Georgia Tech played them great. Once again, Georgia Tech – should have beat them, could have beat them last year, obviously. So this is a good team. It's a rivalry game, et cetera. But I still think Georgia is one of the teams that I've said had improved the most. So once again, we're going to come down to injuries in this game. We'll talk about this game. But I think who got banged up the most last week.
Yeah, and that's problematic for Alabama. One, Josh Cuevas, the great safety valve tight end that's really come on second half of the season. He was out for the Auburn game. He will not play in the SEC championship game. Jam Miller, who led Alabama with 83 yards rushing, finally looked like Jam Miller was putting that performance together. He had a lower leg injury. I've been told he will not be available for the SEC championship game. So all of a sudden, you're digging a little bit deeper into a running back room, Coach, that had not had the success that many people anticipated when the season began.
Yeah, and once again, we always say next man up. But, who is the next guy? What does that look like? Both teams, you've already got maybe a spot that's not as good. And I've had times where we've gone with a third guy. And go back to COVID, we were down both running backs, and our third guy stepped up. But there's a reason he's a starter. There's a reason this guy's a backup. guys can step up, guys can come to play. But injuries at this time of the year is so critical. And then, of course, we got this whole, playoff. And now you got to play this other game against this tough opponent because you want to be the SEC champs. There's no doubt. How does that play out? What's the mindset? What's the injuries? But both are coming off big wins against a rival, so they should be feeling pretty good.
Well, there's no doubt that Georgia wants to win the SEC championship because, one, Kirby wants to get the Alabama monkey off his back.
Yep.
He wants to beat Kalen DeBoer for the first time.
Yep.
I mean, he's 0-2, so he's got a lot of motivation himself. But if you look big picture, though, Coach, from a Georgia perspective, if you do have a few guys that are banged up, you losing this game is not going to hurt you. Granted, Alabama potentially on paper could leapfrog you in the college football playoff rankings, maybe for a bye.
Yep.
But from a Georgia perspective, you're in.
Yeah.
So then that begs the question, do championship games need to be played now?
I think it's got to be discussed. Even though
now, how would you approach it if you were Kirby? Because you're in.
Yeah.
Now I know you're competitive and you want. I know Coach Clark.
You know me.
Wants. I mean, if we're playing a game, we're going to win.
That's it.
But if you're thinking big picture, though,
well, I'm sure he's thinking by. So he does have a chance to gain a week,
an advantage, right?
So win the game, get some rest. I got to beat these guys. The question would be if you hadn't lost to them, how would he really feel?
Right. And on top of that, just playing devil's advocate, I think I'm right in this. Molly can check me, but I think he had a bye last year, and then they lost.
Yeah.
So he might be like, "Hey,
yeah,
let's keep this train rolling."
I think even though these are all great questions, that's why we have a show, to ask questions and talk. The competitor he is, the fact that Alabama's beat him.
Oh, there's no doubt that Kirby's like you. I mean, Kirby's got your DNA. I mean, he is not going to go out there and just like, okay, well, it's just an exhibition game. But they're out there to win.
But things like what you're saying, a guy that's a little banged up, maybe you would have played him, and he would want to play, and you do save him.
Your back's against the wall, and you got to get the win. Like Alabama.
Right.
Now, depending on what the rankings ultimately say, does Alabama go into it with a different mindset than what a Georgia would? Because there's some people that say Alabama has to win or they're out.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a life or death type situation again for Alabama. Right or wrong, whether that's true or not, they know they need to look good, win or lose.
Sure.
So you're going to get them at their best mentality-wise. I think you're going to get the same thing from Georgia because they beat them. So I think, hey, we're going to get a bye. I think you're always playing for the bye. And no matter what happened the time before, maybe we didn't prepare as good, we didn't play as good. He'll probably change some things that he did last time. Maybe he felt like he didn't work them hard enough or whatever. We always do that because that's the stuff you think about in the offseason. When I've had an open date and don't win. So like a loss, you're going to approach things differently. But I think this should be a great game just because of the Alabama having to win. Georgia's trying to beat the team that beat them. I think we got some good stuff.
We've put you in a position before of being on the college football playoff committee. I'd love for you to be on the CFP committee to bring some sanity to that group. Because
I was asked that, and I'd had to have moved to Dallas.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
They wanted you to move to Grapevine Falls.
I was asked to do. I would have to be there a good bit.
Oh, well, shucks, Molly. We could have had some sanity on this committee. That
doesn't mean it would have happened. It was just, would I be interested? And I said, sure. What does it involve?
And then from that point,
you would just had to have been there a good bit. I don't know if I'd had to move, but it would have affected a lot of other things.
Well, and the reason I bring this up because the question is Alabama. Alabama is the number one team in the SEC.
Yeah.
The standings are finished. Alabama finished number one.
Yeah.
They're playing in the SEC championship against Georgia, the number 2 team in the SEC. And if you're the number 1 team in the conference, you won your conference during the regular season, the toughest conference in all of college football. So many people would say, even if they lose by 50, they still should be in the college football playoff. Where do you fall on that side of the fence in regards to Alabama currently in or out of the CFP?
I think they should be in. I think it's regular season. I think this is bonus. That may not be the case, as we know, but that's to me how it should be.
So if you were in that room, and I hate to keep interrupting, but you're bringing up points that obviously kind of continuing the conversation, is that so if you were in that room, you would basically say, yes, the championship game is going to be a data point that I will look at, but now that I've got 8 games of body of work in the toughest conference, that is going to trump whatever I'm going to see this weekend.
Yeah, and I always said should not be penalized for an extra game that they earned.
Fair enough.
They're just playing more games. How do you take that and then a team that didn't play in it, and they're not exposed to the risk of getting to play in a championship game? So I wouldn't punish somebody for making it to a championship game, and that's what you'd be doing.
Yeah. Well, one thing that you don't have to worry about is when you're looking for a bank, and that's Smart Bank, a great sponsor of the program. I know you're on the board of advisors, and they just continue to just do a great job in getting, obviously, more and more customers here in Central Alabama.
Yeah, once again, I think what's happening at Smart Bank is just what we want to be known for is dependable people you can count on, good folks. You know, I needed a wire transfer. I need to pay somebody with a check. Coach, nothing to it. Come in here. Things that you need, they're available. We've talked about being able to call people that sound like us. You know, they're in Sevierville, Tennessee.
Local folk.
Good folks.
Yep.
So good folks at Smart Bank.
Coach, the Auburn Tigers named a new head coach this week, Alex Golesh from South Florida. Been at South Florida for a couple of years. A successful program down in Tampa. He now takes the reins of the Auburn Tigers, trying to get them back on top because it's been since 2019 since they've been above 500.
Yeah, you know, I think the tree of Art Briles as far as what he tries to do schematically, offensively, you know, of course, I was a big fan of that offense. And, you know, it's funny when I hear guys and I know where it comes from, and then to hear it repeated by somebody else who studied them, you know, that's fine. I think, you know, he's done a really good job this year at South Florida. They had a good year last year. Not a ton of a body of work, which is always my concern. I'm not knocking any coach. I just think when I can go back and when I can look for a long body of work, but now he's been in the league, he's played these teams, he understands the SEC, and I think for these guys in the SEC, I had an SEC AD one time tell me, well, he was talking to me, and this was way back. He said, "Look, I just want you to go get 1 year in the SEC to get this stamp of approval." So he's got that. He had a good year. He's got a part of a dynamic offense. I think it's a good hire. Auburn seems very excited about it.
So put us in that world, because it got pretty crazy with you multiple years. You had other opportunities, but you stayed here in Birmingham to coach UAB. During the regular season, I mean, how nuts is it? Is it your representation is getting these phone calls? Do you get a random phone call because an AD got your phone number from a friend or a coach or whoever the case may be? Just how prevalent is that during a regular season, especially when you're a hot name, hot coach?
Yeah, it's representation plus. You know, you're going to get somebody who's especially if there's somebody that knows you that's intertwined, former player, knows one of your coaches. And that's what would happen tons of times with me, where you would have a coach on your staff, played with a guy, coached with a guy who said, "Hey, coach, they're interested in you. Would you have interest?" And that's where it starts. You know, and I think when the natural movement of a coach is, this is what I got to do. You know, the money, the prestige, you know, your family, the chance to play against the best. I mean, that's what you're wanting, you know, in most cases. And so I think it makes sense. Obviously, to get these guys out of the American is very interesting to me, coming from the world I come from. So I like to see it, you know, and I like to see these guys that have really, in a lot of cases, had to do more with less. And I think they're look at Silverfield, who I know, beat Arkansas, gets the Arkansas job. Golesh, you know, has the big win against Miami this year. You know, I mean, so was it Miami that he upset this year? Or was that last year?
You beat Boise in week 1.
Beat Boise in week 1. Yeah, I might be thinking of last year. But, you know, I think they're looking, what did they do against the big boys? And that's some signature wins for those guys. So, you know, I think it's interesting. We've seen some guys from the American, 3 guys take a step.
I was going to ask you, Silverfield, someone that you're close with.
Yeah.
You visited with him numerous times up in Memphis over the last few years. How do you think he will do as an SEC coach, getting his feet wet there in Fayetteville?
Yeah, I think he's going to do well. I really do. I mean, I think some of these things are going to come back to where you are, but I think here's a guy that's worked his way up. You know, started Division III football, O-line coach, which I love. You know, give me O-line coaches, give me defensive guys from a toughness standpoint. You know, I mean, obviously they had that skid at the end of the year. I've got guys that are at Memphis. So very intelligent. So I think he brings a toughness. His guys act right from the things I've seen. So I think he's going to do well there.
When John Sumrall was here in the state at Troy, did you have any dealings with him, or did you know much of him?
I know people that knew him, Troy guys. I had a lot of guys that were Troy guys that had coached with me that thought a lot of him. When he was taking the job, he'd just been offered the job. He called me up and asked if he could speak to Joe Craddock. And I think talking to Joe through the years, there was a lot of pattern similar to us. They were 12 personnel, run the ball, take play action shots. Obviously with Joe, with our background, and then defensively, even though we weren't necessarily the same, I think a defensive mentality head coach. I love that. Mixed with a good offense, good special teams, toughness. I see those things in him. He's the guy that probably most resembles me and how we did things. So I think he's going to do well.
Yeah, John Sumrall was the name that Auburn was prevalent throughout the search. And then obviously the way searches go, there's a lot of peaks and valleys, and ended up getting to Alex Golesh. But John Sumrall, now the head coach at Florida. It is interesting because Sumrall is going to be able to coach Tulane, not only in the conference championship game coming up this weekend against North Texas, but if they make it to the college football playoff, Tulane and Florida both are okay with him coaching as long as Tulane is playing football. Meanwhile, you compare that situation with Lane Kiffin holding the Ole Miss Rebels hostage for many, many days. Matter of fact, it was weeks. And then he makes the decision and he tells his whole staff, if you want to coach with me in the future, you're going to get on that plane to Baton Rouge and you're not going to stay here and coach a team that went 11-1.
Yeah, once again, this show is for coaches. We talk from a coach's perspective. I don't trash coaches hardly ever. We go at it from that perspective, even though we don't have a problem calling things out that we see and are wrong or whatever, or we would just do it differently. That is bad, and I don't fault him one iota for taking another job. I laughed the other day. Somebody said, "Well, don't say anything to a player about doing what they're doing," and I said, "That's not the player's fault that we are so stupid to have let our rules get so bad where there's not rules. Nobody has a problem playing the players. We just ask for contracts." So, in the world of firing you after 2 games or 3 games, you lose, and all of a sudden you're out. Who cares about your contract? I have no problem with that. But it should have been so he gets to coach his team, and he should have handled it that way so he could coach his team. And I think with him being as well wanted as he is, unless there were some things, and maybe there are things that'll come out where we hear, man, Ole Miss lied to him about this, and that, and the picking another school is the world we're in. I don't have a problem with that. But to coach my team who did everything I asked of them this year, it would just been, this is what I'm doing. I'll be there when the season's over. Now, granted, the rumors but I mean, that's one of those things when I'm speaking to LSU, I'm like, look, guys, if y'all cannot keep this under wraps, I'll be sitting right here.
Yeah.
I'm making great money. This is my team. I'm sticking with them. Keep it under wraps. Now, when this is over, I'm open to look. I mean, so how that went down, and I'm not dogging him, but I hate to see that how it happened. Don't blame him for taking another job, but coach your team.
Yeah, I think the part about taking another job, I don't think anybody faults him for that, but I go back to what you just said. We've seen it almost 99% of the time in these conversations with coaches. It's like, we're in the middle of a season. I'm not discussing another job opportunity right now.
Right.
So when the season ends,
that's it.
Once that clock hits midnight, when the season's over with, we're going to have a discussion. But up until that time, do not bother me.
Right.
But he loves the drama.
Yeah.
He's the one that spurred all of this on. He's the one that made everybody wait a whole week after their initial meeting. And then he comes up, then waits another day, because some people have told me that he was hoping that the Alabama job was going to come open. If Auburn had beaten Alabama, that Kalen DeBoer was going to look for an off-ramp, because Kalen DeBoer's agent is Jimmy Sexton, who represents Lane Kiffin. So he was kind of holding out maybe to Sunday to see what was going on with the Alabama job, because that's the one he's coveted the most. So the whole thing was built on by Lane. Not a problem with him going to LSU. Right. It was just the fact that you quit on your football team.
Yeah.
You quit on your team, period. Yeah. And now you put a lot of kids in a position where let's just be honest, very difficult for them to win, considering you don't have any of your offensive staff that's going to be running the college football playoffs. So it's just a very bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is what it is, but I mean, we're in 100% agreement. I think, once again, don't have a problem you leaving. Just handle it the right way. You hold the cards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is different. You're not a guy trying to get to another job where they're happy. They don't want you to leave. South Florida, you saw what they said. Man, we wish him the best. Tulane, I'm going to stay and coach them. This is a different scenario, but you hold the cards. You could have played it the way you want to play it.
Yep. Webb Concrete and Building Supplies, great company, great sponsor.
Yeah, Phil Webb and those guys, Webb Concrete and Building Supplies. We got 7 different locations all over the place, and you got flooring, concrete, all the supplies you need to build a house. They're doing really well. They're going to take care of you at Webb Concrete and Building Supplies.
Coach, the UAB Blazers wrapped up the regular season. It was a disappointing season. 4-8 was their overall record. Obviously, Trent Dilfer was fired in the middle season, but you can't say enough about Alex Mortensen, the way that he kept that football team together. An impressive win on the road. More impressive the fact that, and listen, you went through something similar to this, not the drama that went on with UAB football this year, but you were a coach during COVID.
Yeah.
And you had to deal with having a roster that up until the last minute, you really didn't know who was going to be playing, but UAB was missing 42 players off their active roster in their final game.
Yeah, and I think that's what we want to see. What happens in a bad time with the coach? How does he handle adversity? Obviously, they had the terrible situation at the field house. You know, thoughts and prayers with all those folks. And, you know, Lyle Henley as a strength coach, Dan Springer as the trainer, Alex as the head coach, kept that program together. Of course, they saved those kids. But, you know, give Alex a lot of credit for keeping them together, going on the road, winning the game. So whatever happens in the future, I think he proved himself as a guy that's got a chance down the road to be a good head coach. And this was definitely a trial by fire. But tons of credit to them. Happy for UAB to come out with a win at the end of the season and give them some hope for the future.
Absolutely. One thing that you do not have to worry about hope, and that's your car and your vehicle, because your Tahoe that you drive in here on 2 wheels every single week when you do the show, it's pretty impressive. And that's because of Donahue Chevrolet.
And absolutely very clean as well. No, I think the thing we love about Donahue is like we talk about our sponsors, and it not quite talk with us because we know these folks. We know how they treat you. I think one of the things, too, is you got a great product in the Chevy. Their Chevy products. Obviously, I have the Chevy Tahoe and love it, and family has it, but I think all those Chevy products, and they got a lot of great deals, especially with the holidays coming up.
All right, so last week it was rivalry week. See, I said that right, Molly. She's making fun of me the way I talk. But this weekend, do you anticipate chaos in these conference championship games?
I do. Yeah, I think it's going to be wild. I think it's just, once again, what happens when you get out there and play. And I think, once again, where are they injury-wise? Where are they mentality-wise? Is somebody leaving? Is somebody, you know, what's going on with the players? You know, the portal, all the things that's coming up, all these things maybe we didn't even have to deal with before. I mean, we've had guys sit out of games, bowl games. Does the championship game fall into that where guys might sit out? So always going to be a lot of drama, especially as we get ready to go into the playoffs.
One final note, this week was National Signing Day, and I remember you and I, years ago, me and you did a show on National Signing Day. Man, how things have changed in regards to signing day back in the day when you and I did a show together.
Gosh, I mean, people are paying guys to come on visits now. I mean,
just visits.
Yeah. I mean, stuff that we would have never believed before.
Well, that was illegal.
Yeah, that was the reason that we knew about. So, you know, I think the whole difference in what was going on with high school players and how that's really turned into such a change with the portal and, the way this is managed and navigated right now with the fact that they're having to do visits in season. I talked to a coach it was game week and he had 30 recruits in that week.
Wow.
30. Each one of those guys requires one-on-one.
Yeah.
All the things, academics, taking each person is their own entity. Imagine that times 30 game week.
That's crazy. Times have changed. Well, always appreciate you joining us each and every week here on the Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper, Buffalo Rock. Jimmy Lee and those folks do a great job.
Yeah, oh my gosh, the best. And support all kind of things throughout our community, but especially our show. We appreciate them.
Absolutely. Hope you'll join us again next week. From Molly, I'm Pat. That's Coach. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on the Bill Clark Show, presented by Buffalo Rock, Dr. Pepper.
been the Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper.